My wife is secretly paying her boyfriend to fix the house. It was the smell of fresh-cut lumber, that clean, sharp scent that used to be my sanctuary, that first snagged at me, pulling at something deep and uncomfortable. It should have been familiar, comforting, a ghost of all those weekends I'd spent out there, sweating under the summer sun, hammering nails, wrestling drywall, shaping this place with my own two hands. But lately, it smelled off. Like someone else's sweat, someone else's ambition was now clinging to the air, mingling with the pine and cedar. And that's when it started. That little gnawing doubt, that whisper in the back of my mind that I tried my damnedest to ignore. You know, if this is hitting you somewhere deep, if you're feeling that resonance, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And for God's sake, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Your engagement keeps these stories coming. Her name is Sarah, has been for 10 years now. 10 years of shared laughter, shared silences, shared dreams. Or at least, that's what I thought. We bought this fixer-upper in the suburbs, a solid bone structure, but a wreck. I poured everything into it, every spare moment, every dime I could squirrel away, every ounce of my frustration and my hope. I wanted it to be perfect for us, for our future. I'd stay out in the garage, the smell of sawdust and wood stain thick in the air, listening to podcasts about construction, learning how to plumb, how to wire, how to lay tile. Sarah would bring me out lemonade, sometimes dinner, her smile a warm beacon in the dim workshop light. She'd tell me how proud she was, how lucky she was to have me. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe in the fairy tale we were building, brick by brick, nail by nail. But the house? It's this sprawling, rambling thing, full of quirks and endless projects. We'd get one room halfway decent, and then another would start to sag, or the pipes would groan a new song of impending doom. It was a constant drain, not just financially, but emotionally. And I was getting tired. The job I have, it's demanding, and after a full day of spreadsheets and client calls, the idea of wrestling with a stubborn faucet or a cracked foundation felt like the final straw. I'd look at the unfinished basement, the peeling paint in the hallway, the overgrown backyard, and a weariness would settle over me, heavy as a wet blanket. Sarah, she's always been the driven one, ambitious, organized. She's got this bright, energetic way about her, a way of making things happen. I admired that. I still do. The last year, things started to change, subtly at first. Sarah got a promotion at her marketing firm. More money, more travel, longer hours. I was happy for her, genuinely. She deserved it. But the house projects, they seemed to accelerate.
Out of nowhere, Sarah announced she'd hired a contractor to finish the basement. I was surprised. We hadn't really discussed it. I'd been planning on tackling it myself, slowly, piece by piece. But she was so excited, so adamant. "It'll be so much faster, honey," she'd said, her eyes bright. "And you've been working so hard. You deserve to relax." I chalked it up to her wanting to surprise me, to her being thoughtful. And the contractor, a guy named Mark, he was good, real good, efficient, quiet. He'd show up early, leave late, and the basement, it was like a miracle. Drywall, paint, flooring, even a decent bathroom installed. It was incredible. Then it was the landscaping. The backyard was a jungle, honestly. Weeds taller than me, overgrown bushes, a fence that was practically falling down. Again, Sarah just announced it was done. This time, a different guy, younger, with sun-bleached hair and a confident swagger. He'd leave the yard immaculate, the grass perfectly cut, the flower beds weeded. He was quick, too. I never saw him working. He'd just do it. And Sarah would be beaming, showing me the before and after photos on her phone. "Isn't it amazing?" she'd gush. I'd nod, smile. But that little unease, it was growing. It was too much, too fast. We weren't flush with cash. Where was all this coming from? I tried to ask, gently. "Honey, that landscaping crew, they did a fantastic job, but I didn't realize we'd budgeted for such a big overhaul right now." She'd wave her hand, dismissively. "Oh, don't worry about it. It was a good deal. A friend of a friend." A friend of a friend. That phrase started to echo in my mind, a hollow ring. She'd always been good with money, careful. But lately, there were more designer bags, more expensive dinners out with her work friends, little luxuries that felt new. And the house, it was transforming.
The roof, which had been leaking in one corner, suddenly got replaced. The old, drafty windows were swapped out for sleek, modern ones. Each improvement, while undeniably welcome, felt like a phantom limb, attached to a body I no longer fully recognized. I started noticing small things. A lingering scent of cologne in the hallway, not mine. A muddy footprint on the freshly tiled entryway that wasn't mine. Sarah's phone, always within reach, was suddenly guarded. If I reached for it, she'd snatch it away, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Just work stuff," she'd say, her voice a little too bright. The basement was finished, immaculate. The garden was a masterpiece. The roof was solid. The windows gleamed. The house I'd poured my blood, sweat, and tears into, the house that was supposed to be our project, was being rebuilt around me by an invisible army of someone. And Sarah, she was the conductor of this silent orchestra. Her directives whispered, her payments made in a way that kept me in the dark. One Tuesday evening, I got home early. My meeting had been canceled. The house was quiet.
Too quiet. Sarah was supposedly at a late work dinner. I walked into the kitchen, and there it was again. That smell. Fresh lumber. Not the dusty, aged smell of the old garage, but the sharp, clean scent of new construction. It was coming from the master bedroom. We'd been planning on redoing the ensuite bathroom for years, but it was a massive undertaking. I'd always put it off, knowing the cost and the mess. I tiptoed down the hall, my heart starting to thud against my ribs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I saw him. He was tall, muscular, wearing work boots and a tool belt. He was sanding down a new vanity, the rhythmic rasp of sandpaper filling the air. He had his back to me, his movements fluid and efficient. He wasn't just a contractor. He was familiar. I'd seen him before. Sarah had mentioned him, vaguely. Mark, the basement guy. No, not Mark. Another one. This guy, he had a tattoo on his forearm, a swirling, intricate design I'd seen on Sarah's phone screen once when she was showing me some art. He was wearing a t-shirt with a logo I didn't recognize, but the fabric looked expensive. And the way he moved, the way he held himself, it wasn't the cautious, professional demeanor of a hired hand. It was comfortable, like he belonged there. I backed away slowly, my breath catching in my throat. I retreated to the living room, my mind racing. He was here, now, in our house, while Sarah was supposedly at a work dinner. And he was working on the bathroom we were supposed to fix. The smell of sawdust was overpowering now, a suffocating cloud. I felt a cold dread creeping in, a sick, churning sensation in my stomach. I picked up my phone, my fingers fumbling. I scrolled through Sarah's recent calls, her texts. Nothing out of the ordinary, just work. And then I saw it, a notification from her banking app, a large transfer. The date, yesterday. The recipient, a name I didn't recognize, followed by a string of numbers, and a memo, materials for ensuite. My blood ran cold. Materials for the ensuite. And he was here, working on it. This wasn't just a contractor. This was someone Sarah was paying. Someone who was clearly more than just a contractor. The man in the bedroom, the way he worked, the tattoo, the cologne I'd smelled. It all clicked into place with a sickening finality. This wasn't a surprise renovation. I just stood there, The confession unspooling in my head, the unspoken words a suffocating weight. The sandpaper stopped. A door creaked open. Then the soft thud of work boots on hardwood echoed down the hall. My heart leaped into my throat, a trapped bird beating its wings against my ribs. He was coming out. I held my breath, pressing myself deeper into the shadowy corner of the living room, praying he wouldn't glance my way. I heard him walk down the hallway, the faint jingle of keys or tools. Then the front door opened, a blast of cool evening air washing through the house, followed by the click of the lock as it shut behind him. Silence returned, heavier and more oppressive than before. I stayed frozen for what felt like an eternity, the adrenaline coursing through me, my mind a chaotic storm. He was gone. He was here, and now he was gone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone steady. I had to know. I had to connect the dots, no matter how ugly they might be. I opened Sarah's banking app again, my thumb hovering over the transfer. Materials for ensuite. The name attached to the payment was something like A.J. Rourke, followed by digits I didn't recognize. A.J. Rourke. It meant nothing to me. But the memo, that was the kicker. Sarah, my wife, meticulously detailing the purpose of a payment for a renovation I thought we were doing together. Except I hadn't authorized this. I hadn't discussed it. I hadn't even known it was happening until I saw this stranger in our bedroom. A wave of nausea washed over me. The smell of sawdust still clung to the air, now laced with the phantom scent of that unfamiliar cologne. It was a pungent, masculine aroma, one I'd dismissed before as just another one of Sarah's male colleagues visiting, a fleeting scent left behind. Now, it was a branding iron, searing itself into my memory, a marker of trespass. I stumbled into the bedroom, the scene of the violation. The vanity was indeed new, a sleek, modern piece, its surface smooth and ready for a countertop. The walls were prepped for paint, a light primer coating them in a ghostly white. It looked good, professionally done. Too professionally done. It was the kind of work I'd dreamed up for years, the kind of dream that had slowly, inexorably been chipped away by the reality of our finances and my own dwindling energy. I walked over to the wall where he'd been working. The sandpaper sat on a drop cloth, a fine layer of wood dust coating its surface. I picked up a stray piece of wood, a thin shaving that had fallen to the floor. It felt smooth, new. I ran my thumb over it, the ghost of his touch, his work, lingering there. Guilt, sharp and sudden, pricked at me. I was here, lurking, spying. But then the anger returned, hot and furious, eclipsing the guilt. He was in my house, working on our bathroom, paid for by my wife, and I was the one hiding in the shadows like a common thief.
The betrayal wasn't just the act, it was the calculated deception. It was Sarah smiling at me, telling me she was proud while she was secretly orchestrating this. I pulled out my phone again, my fingers trembling as I navigated to Sarah's contacts. I scrolled past work colleagues, family members, friends I knew. And then I found him. Not under A.J. Rourke. No, he was listed as Jake. Just Jake. No last name. No company. Just Jake. I tapped on the contact. There was a profile picture. It was him. The man in my bedroom. The man with the tattoo. The man with the expensive t-shirt. He was smiling, a broad, easy grin that radiated a confidence I'd never seen on any contractor before. In the picture, he was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and the tattoo on his forearm was clearly visible, that same swirling, intricate design. Beneath the picture, there was a phone number. It was the same number associated with the payment to A.J. Rourke. My vision blurred. Jake. Not A.J. Rourke. Not some anonymous contractor. Jake. The contractor who was suddenly, inexplicably, finishing our master bathroom. The landscaping, the roof, the windows. Had he done all of that too? Sarah had always been vague about the details, dismissing my questions with casual brush-offs. A friend of a friend, she'd said. A friend of a friend. Was Jake that friend? Or was Jake something more? The thought slithered into my mind, cold and unwelcome, but insistent. The way he moved, the way he handled himself, the almost proprietary air he had in our home, it wasn't the behavior of someone just doing a job. It was the behavior of someone who felt they belonged. I needed to confirm. I needed to see the other projects. My gaze swept across the room, then out into the hallway, toward the meticulously organized entryway, the flawlessly painted walls. The landscaping outside the window was a riot of perfectly pruned bushes and vibrant flowers, a stark contrast to the overgrown mess I remembered. I walked out of the bedroom, my footsteps unnervingly loud in the quiet house. I went to the garage. It was always my domain, a chaotic but functional space filled with my tools, my half-finished projects, my sense of accomplishment. But it was different now. Neater, cleaner. Sarah had organized it a few months back, claiming it would be more efficient. I'd barely recognized it. And there, leaning against the workbench, was a sleek new wheelbarrow. Not mine. Mine was old, tinted, practical. This one looked like it belonged in a high-end garden center. My hands felt clammy. I walked to the back door, looking out at the backyard. The fence, which had been sagging and splintered, was now a pristine white picket fence, impeccably installed. The grass was a uniform emerald green, the flower beds a kaleidoscope of color. It was beautiful, absolutely stunning. A professional job. I remembered Sarah showing me before and after photos, her face alight with pride.
But it wasn't my pride I saw reflected in her eyes. It was someone else's. The pieces were fitting together, forming a picture so horrifying I wanted to tear it apart. The sudden influx of money for renovations, the vague explanations, the unfamiliar scent, the guarded phone, the contractor who was more than a contractor. It all pointed to one devastating conclusion. Sarah was having an affair. And not just any affair, one that involved our home, one that involved me being deliberately excluded from my own life. She was having an affair with Jake, and she was paying him, using him to renovate our house. The house I'd built, the house I'd poured my soul into, the house that was supposed to be a symbol of our future together. A guttural sound escaped my throat, a choked sob of pain and disbelief. I staggered back into the living room, collapsing onto the couch, the cushions sighing under my weight. My eyes scanned the room, the perfectly placed throw pillows, the clean surfaces, the overall sense of polished calm. It all felt like a lie, a facade. Every improvement, every touch of perfection was a testament to her deception. I'd been so proud of her success, so happy that she was finally getting the recognition she deserved at work. I thought the renovations were her way of expressing that newfound success, a way to give us the home we'd always dreamed of. I'd been so wrong. So blindly, tragically wrong. My mind replayed conversations, flashes of memory now recontextualized by this horrifying revelation. Her excited pronouncements about the basement being finished, her beaming smile as she showed me the before and after shots of the garden. Had she known then? Had she already been involved with Jake? The thought made me sick. It meant this wasn't a recent development. This had been going on for months, maybe longer. The foundation of our marriage, the bedrock of our shared life, was riddled with termites, gnawing away at everything I thought was real. I clenched my fists, digging my nails into my palms. The sharp sting was a welcome distraction from the ache in my chest. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, demand to know why. But a part of me, the part that still loved her, that still clung to the remnants of our shared life, was terrified of the truth. What if Jake wasn't just a contractor? What if he was more? What if Sarah loved him? The thought was a physical blow. I reached for my phone again, my thumb hovering over Sarah's contact. I typed out a message, then deleted it. What could I say? Who is Jake? Too simple. Who is AJ Rourke? Too specific, too accusatory. I deleted that too. My fingers ached from the pressure. I needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof that would shatter her carefully constructed world. Then a flicker of an idea. The bank app, the transfer, the memo. I could look for more. I scrolled back through her transaction history, my heart pounding with each click. There were other payments, smaller ones, to the same account. Landscaping supplies, roofing materials, window installation. It was all there. A meticulously documented trail of financial infidelity, disguised as home improvement. She was paying him, systematically, to rebuild our lives while simultaneously dismantling ours.
I was lost in the digital labyrinth of her finances when my phone vibrated, startling me. A text message from Sarah. My blood ran cold. "Hey honey, work dinner ran late. I'm heading home now. Be there in about 30 minutes. Love you." 30 minutes. She was coming home. She was walking into the house, into the aftermath of my discovery, into a space that was now tainted by the truth. The smell of sawdust, though faint now, still lingered, a mocking reminder of what had transpired. I looked at the pristine living room, the perfect house, and a cold, hard knot of rage tightened in my stomach. I couldn't let her walk in and pretend everything was normal. I couldn't let her soothe me with a casual "I love you," as if nothing had happened. My mind raced, a desperate scramble for a plan, for a way to salvage something from this wreckage. Confrontation felt inevitable, but I needed to be prepared. I needed to control the narrative, to at least try. I stood up, my legs feeling shaky, and walked to the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and poured myself a generous shot. The amber liquid burned my throat, a welcome fire against the encroaching chill. I needed to see what else I could find. I needed to understand the full scope of this betrayal. The basement. Sarah had hired Mark for the basement. Or had she? Had Jake done that too? Had she used different names, different contractors to cover her tracks? The thought was dizzying. I remembered Sarah's laptop was on the desk in the spare room. It was usually password protected, but maybe, just maybe, if I could get into it. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The clock on the wall ticked with agonizing slowness. 30 minutes. I downed another shot of whiskey, the burn a little less intense now, replaced by a grim determination. I walked towards the spare room, my footsteps heavy with the weight of impending revelation. The door creaked open, revealing the neat, organized space. And there, on the desk, was Sarah's laptop. I sat down, my hands trembling as I reached for the power button. The screen flickered to life, displaying a familiar login screen. A password, of course. I tried a few combinations, our anniversary, our pet's name, common words. Nothing. Frustration gnawed at me. I was so close, so agonizingly close to answers, and yet. Then, a memory surfaced. A few months ago, Sarah had been struggling to remember her password for something, and I'd overheard her muttering it under her breath. She'd been frustrated, sighing dramatically. It was something simple, something she'd probably thought was clever at the time.
I held my breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I typed in the sequence, my heart in my mouth. The screen unlocked. A flood of emails, documents, and open applications greeted me. I scrolled through her inbox, my eyes scanning for keywords. Jake, Rourke, contractor, payment, renovations. And then I found it. A folder labeled Home Projects. I clicked it open, my hands shaking so violently I could barely control the mouse. Inside, there were subfolders: basement, landscaping, roof, windows. And then, a new one, created just a week ago. Master Ensuite, Jake. My breath hitched. I opened the Master Ensuite Jake folder. It was filled with emails, and not just emails about materials. There were messages between Sarah and Jake, scheduling him, discussing progress. And pictures. Pictures of him. Not just working, but smiling. Posed pictures. And then there were screenshots of financial transactions, far more detailed than what I'd seen on the banking app. They showed payments, not just for materials, but for his time, for his labor. And interspersed with the professional correspondence were personal messages, flirty exchanges, inside jokes. One email, sent just yesterday from Jake to Sarah, read, "Can't wait for the final reveal, sweetheart. This one's been my favorite project yet. And you know what they say about a man who can build a house?" Wink emoji. Sweetheart. My blood ran cold. The wink emoji, the possessive tone. This was no contractor-client relationship. This was personal. This was intimate. This was a betrayal so profound, so multi-layered, that it made my head spin. I felt a primal urge to vomit.
The carefully constructed facade of our life had crumbled into dust, and the true architect of its destruction was standing right in front of me in the form of a digital folder on my wife's laptop. Suddenly, the front door opened downstairs, the sound of keys jingling, then the distinct click of the lock. Sarah was home. A wave of panic, sharp and suffocating, washed over me. I slammed the laptop shut, the sudden movement jarring the desk. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of impending doom. I could hear her footsteps on the stairs, light and quick. She was humming a tune, a cheerful melody that grated on my raw nerves. I scrambled out of the spare room, my mind a blank slate of terror and rage. I had to do something. I had to make her see. But how? How could I articulate the depth of this wound? How could I convey the sheer, devastating impact of what I had just uncovered? The humming grew louder, closer. She was almost at the top of the stairs. My breath caught in my throat. I stood in the hallway, frozen, the weight of her impending arrival crushing me. I looked down in my hands, still trembling, still slick with sweat. The faint, lingering scent of sawdust seemed to mock me.
And then, just as she rounded the corner, her bright smile poised to greet me, my eyes fell on something I'd overlooked before, tucked away on the desk in the spare room. A small, framed photo, face down. My blood turned to ice. I'd seen it before, in Sarah's bedside drawer, a photo she kept hidden. A photo of her and Jake, their arms around each other, laughing. It was dated 2 years ago. 2 years. This wasn't new. This had been happening for years. And she was standing right there, about to walk into the ruins of our life, completely oblivious to the fact that I knew. The sheer, unadulterated horror of it all threatened to consume me. The floorboards creaked as she stepped into the hallway, her cheerful hum abruptly ceasing when she saw me. Her smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Surprise? Guilt? Fear? It was too quick to tell. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too strained. "You're up early." Early? It was nearly 7 in the evening. The afternoon had bled into night, and with it, the last vestiges of my ignorance. I stood there, a statue carved from disbelief and dawning horror, the laptop still warm beneath my fingertips. The scent of sawdust, once a simple reminder of home improvement, now reeked of betrayal. Early? My voice was a rasp, foreign even to my own ears. I hadn't spoken in hours, and the sound of it was like scraping metal. She took a tentative step towards me, her gaze flicking from my face to the spare room, then back. "Yeah, I mean, you're usually still at the gym this time of night, right?" She offered a small nervous laugh. I didn't laugh back. I couldn't. My lungs felt constricted, as if an invisible hand was squeezing the air from them. The photograph, the one on the desk, I couldn't look away from it. It was Sarah, younger, radiating a naive joy, and beside her, Jake, the same Jake from my bedroom, the man with the tattoo, the man she'd been paying, the man she'd been loving. The photograph was dated 2 years ago. 2 years. Not months, not weeks. Years. The foundations I thought were solid, the memories I cherished, the very essence of our marriage. It was all a lie, a performance. The gym. I finally managed to get out, my words heavy with a sarcasm I didn't intend. "No, Sarah, not the gym." Her brow furrowed, genuine concern now etched onto her face. It was a mask she'd perfected, I realized, capable of simulating any emotion needed to maintain the illusion. "Are you okay? You look pale." She took another step, reaching out a hand as if to touch my arm. I flinched away, the movement sharp and involuntary. Her hand dropped, her expression shifting from concern to a wounded hurt. "What is it? What's wrong?" The question hung in the air, a cruel joke. What was wrong? Everything. My life, my marriage, my perception of reality. It was all wrong. I gestured vaguely towards the spare room, my hand shaking. I was looking for something. "On your laptop." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something, apprehension, flashing through them. "My laptop? Why? Did you need to check your email?" "No." The word was a low growl. I swallowed hard, the dryness in my throat unbearable. I walked slowly into the spare room. She followed, her movements hesitant, like a cat unsure of a trap. I sat down at the desk, my gaze fixed on the open laptop. The folder labeled Master Ensuite Jake was still there. a digital tombstone marking the death of my trust. "Sarah," I began, my voice trembling, not from fear, but from a profound, gut-wrenching grief. "Who is Jake?" Her breath hitched. She stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mask of carefully controlled panic. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she forced a smile. "Jake? He's the contractor, remember? The one handling the bathroom renovation. The contractor who's been helping with the landscaping, the roof, the windows? The contractor you've been paying for 2 years?" The words tumbled out, each one a hammer blow. I picked up the framed photo from the desk, the one of her and Jake, their arms around each other, their faces alight with a shared secret. I held it out to her. "Who is this, Sarah?" Her face drained of all color. The forced smile vanished, replaced by a raw, naked fear. Her eyes darted from the photo to me, then back again. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You told me he was a friend of a friend," I continued, my voice rising, the carefully constructed calm I'd tried to maintain shattering. "A friend of a friend who just happened to be incredibly talented and affordable. You told me these renovations were our dream, our future. You lied to me, Sarah, about everything." Tears began to stream down her face, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of desperation, of cornered animal fear. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Oh, it's exactly what I think," I said, my voice shaking with a fury that was rapidly consuming me. "It's exactly what I've been seeing. It's what I've smelled. It's what I've been feeling. This entire house is a monument to your deceit. Every perfect corner, every polished surface, every vibrant flower, it's all a lie, paid for by him, built by him, while I was sitting here oblivious, thinking we were building a life together." I stood up, the photo still clutched in my hand. My whole body was vibrating with an energy that was both destructive and oddly liberating. The truth, however ugly, was finally out in the open. The money, Sarah, the transfers, materials for ensuite, landscaping supplies. You were paying him. You were funding your affair with our money. She finally found her voice, a choked sob escaping her. "It wasn't always like this. It started out innocent. He was just helping. And then things got complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, a fersh, brittle sound that echoed in the small room.
"Complicated? You call sneaking around with another man for 2 years, using him to renovate our home, complicated? What about me, Sarah? Was I complicated enough for you? Or was I just convenient? A husband in name only, a convenient prop in your elaborate charade?" I walked over to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn, the pristine fence. It was all a stage set, designed to impress. And I, the fool, had been the star of the most heartbreaking tragedy. "You looked me in the eye, Sarah. You smiled. You talked about our future. You let me believe that we were a team, that we were building something real." My voice cracked. The anger, though still present, was starting to be drowned out by the overwhelming tide of pain. "Did you ever love me, Sarah? Or was I just a placeholder, a temporary accommodation until something better came along?" She stumbled forward, her hands outstretched. "Don't say that. I do love you. I never stopped loving you." "Love me?" I turned to face her, my eyes blazing. "Love me? If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have invited another man into our home, into our lives, and built an empire of lies on the wreckage of our trust. You wouldn't have systematically erased me from my own life." I threw the photo onto the desk. It landed with a clatter, the image of their smiling faces a stark indictment. "He was in my bedroom, Sarah, working in our bedroom. And you were paying him. You were in on it. You orchestrated this. You let him touch my things, sleep in my bed, renovate my house, all while I was out there working, providing, thinking I was doing it all for us.
The reality of it all, the sheer audacity of her betrayal, hit me with the force of a physical blow. I staggered back, my hand flying to my chest, trying to grasp the gaping wound that had opened within me. I saw the sandpaper, Sarah. I smelled his cologne. I found the payment. I found the emails. I found everything. Her shoulders slumped, the last of her defenses crumbling. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her head in her hands, her body racked with sobs. This time they sounded like genuine despair. "I'm sorry," she choked out, her voice muffled. "I'm so sorry. Sorry." The word felt hollow, meaningless. What could sorry fix? It couldn't unsee the emails. It couldn't unfeel the betrayal. It couldn't unknow that my wife, the woman I'd shared my life with, had been living a double life, and I had been the unwitting audience to her elaborate deception. I walked past her, out of the spare room, and into the living room. The perfectly arranged cushions, the pristine surfaces, the quiet elegance, it all felt like a mocking testament to her skill at deception. I looked around, trying to find a solid point, something real in this house of lies. There was nothing. "I don't understand," I said, my voice quieter now, the rage subsiding, leaving behind a desolate wasteland of grief. "Why?"
Why would you do this? We had a good life. She finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. It wasn't enough, Alex. It wasn't exciting enough. He made me feel alive, like I mattered, like I was beautiful. Beautiful. The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. Was I not making her feel beautiful? Had I become so complacent, so absorbed in my own world that I'd let her feel invisible? The guilt, sharp and unexpected, pierced through the fog of my anger. But it was quickly overshadowed by the sheer magnitude of her choice. "So you chose him," I stated, not a question, but a conclusion. "You chose excitement over us. You chose feeling over commitment. You chose a fleeting thrill over a lifetime of love." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake, Alex. A terrible mistake." Mistake. It felt like more than a mistake. It felt like a deliberate, calculated dismantling of everything we had built. I walked to the front door, my hand reaching for the knob. I needed to get out. I needed air. I needed to escape this suffocating monument to betrayal. "I can't do this, Sarah," I said, my voice raw. "I can't live in this house anymore. I can't look at you and not see him. I can't breathe the same air." I opened the door, the cool night air a welcome relief against my flushed skin. I stepped out onto the porch, the familiar streetlights casting long shadows. I turned back to look at her, standing in the doorway of our perfect, ruined home. Her face was a study in sorrow, but I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it was too late. The damage was done. The trust was shattered. The love, whatever it had been, was irrevocably broken. "I'm leaving," I said, the words a final, devastating exhale. "I need time. I need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Because this," I gestured vaguely around me, at the house, at the life I thought we had. "This isn't it. Not anymore." I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked away, into the darkness, the weight of a future I never imagined settling heavily on my shoulders. The house, with its perfectly manicured lawn and its architect of deceit, receded behind me, a ghost of a life that was no more. I walked, not knowing where I was going, just knowing I had to get away from the suffocating scent of sawdust and betrayal, from the woman who had so expertly turned my world upside down, and from the wreckage of a love that had been built on sand. The stars above were indifferent, cold and vast, mirroring the emptiness that had opened up inside me. I kept walking, each step a painful punctuation mark on the end of everything.